Hello, everybody, and welcome once again back to the table. I am Katelynn. I am your host. I'm one of your hosts. We have two hosts. My other host is Shannon. Hello.
Hello, I'm the other host.
I have done this intro upwards of 15 times, and I think I say it awkwardly, weirdly different every time.
It's okay. We get there.
I don't know how YouTubers do it. Don't they, like, I don't know, get annoyed with their own intro? I imagine they do.
Maybe, but I think also maybe it becomes like a script if you say the exact same thing every time.
That's true.
So it's just
hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier.
Top of the morning.
Yes. He doesn't even say that anymore. He just does the high five, and that's it.
That's right. Yeah.
They in their outros change too, which I guess is kind of, you know, things should change as you get older. They've been doing that stuff for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things when you make any kind of art or create content, like if it doesn't change over like years of doing it, that's probably also not a good thing. Like you change as a person in that time, so what you make should change too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like your audience will change. So you might as well, you know, grow up with them as much as so many of them be like, I miss you've changed. I miss when you were this way. Like if they had stayed the same, you'd probably dislike them more. People just love to complain about people doing what they love.
The truth of it, for sure.
Really poignant start to today's episode. But today it's me and Shannon once again, a two-person episode. Which I like that. I like how well they're sprinkled in there. I like the two people ones just as much as the guest ones.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
And Katelynn, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you want to eat?
Great start. I don't know. I never know. I don't think I've ever answered this question straight up immediately with an answer. I have eventually, but it usually takes some mental gymnastics on my own end, and I fully admit that I'm the problem.
It's okay. I'm right there with you. It's that age-old question where it seems like it should have a straightforward answer, and then it simply does not.
Yeah.
You're like, suddenly everything and nothing sounds good right now.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you want to eat?
I don't know. And then it goes back and forth, and it's a terrible ping pong game.
Yeah. And it's, I was thinking about it today, too, because I came home and I made dinner, and I was thinking about, you know, what we'd be talking about today. Because when it's just for me, I am so sure of what I'm going to eat. So I know I get so caught up in what the other person wants that I can't decide for myself, which is wildly unhelpful. Like, fully, like, it doesn't help anyone. But, like, for myself, I was, like, offered food, and I was like, no, I have an idea for dinner that I want to make, so I'm going to make it. I don't want anything else. But if that had been, like, if Noah had been with me, I would have been like, I don't know, Noah, do you want this or that instead? I don't know, what do you want to do?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm always thinking of the other person, especially if they have different tastes than I do, and I know that for a fact. And like, if I pick my favorite place, then like they won't be able to find anything.
Right.
That's not fun either.
And that and I don't know, I'm down for anything. It's like both sometimes the truest statement you can say and the biggest lie. And whenever someone else says it, you assume they're lying. It's like, no, you want something. Lying. But I mean,
because I want to be as agreeable as possible and say like, oh yeah, anything. But then I go through the things I don't like, and I'm like, actually, I do have some pretty strong preferences that I will not bend for this decision.
Yeah, and you can tell very much that we are both serial people pleasers.
Yep.
But
for sure.
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, and hence why we've decided to dedicate a whole podcast to it. And like, I do have some some solutions that I have already tried that have worked. And I'm sure we will workshop some more here. But like, where do you run into this question most often? Because like my easy answer is like, no, and I do it twice a freaking week. But like, who do you run into this battle with the most?
Yeah, I think most often it's on those rare days when everyone in my family is all together
Mm-hmm.
for food. Um, a lot of times, our work schedules don't align, so it's just kind of like meals happen however they're able to. But on, like, say, the weekends when we're all together, we're like, okay, do we want to cook? Do we want to go out? What do we want to do? And it's like four different people's opinions now, butting
Mm-hmm.
heads.
Oh,
Um,
that's hard with 4 people, let alone just the
yeah,
2.
yeah. So what I've started doing is like my parents will mention in the morning, like, okay, let's think about supper ideas. And then I'll have like a mini meeting with my brother Craig to like vet our ideas first. And then we go to them with like 3 options versus the 20 that could have come up if we were all together.
Okay.
So that's been working so
That's
far.
a great idea. Because then everyone still gets their own say without it being like a brainstorm, I guess.
Yes.
That's cool. And I do like that you have a different issue from me, whereas you will end up with too many options to decide. Whereas more often than not, Noah and I, neither of us have any idea. Like neither of us like, I'm in the mood for this, or it's literally just, I'm hungry. I want food. I know I'm going to order chicken fingers at 70% of the restaurants we're going to go to. So it doesn't matter
Mhm.
to me. Or, I'm a little bit more exciting than that, but I do like chicken fingers from most restaurants. Um,
Yeah. It's ultra reliable. Sometimes you just want those chicken fingers.
yeah, for sure. 99's amazing chicken fingers. Longhorns amazing, although their shrimp is better. Chili's amazing. Maybe
All
my
true too.
standards are low, but man, a chicken finger is just a perfect food.
Yeah.
This
I
one's for
don't
you,
I don't
Nathan.
know what having high standards for chicken fingers would look like,
True. I don't know. Have I ever
but
had a bad chicken finger? No, I definitely
I
have.
have.
Fair food
Yeah.
chicken fingers suck.
Where?
Like fairs or carnivals or like Canopy Lake, like fair, like
Oh, oh, oh. Yeah.
carnival chicken fingers suck.
Yeah. Never great. I remember at my college's dining hall, sometimes it would be great, and then other times it would just like you'd get a pocket of fat
Ooh.
in it, and you're like, oh, that's just the wrong texture
Yeah, and
right
it
now.
bounces back in your teeth.
Yep. Oh, nope. I hate it.
my my school had a real issue my freshman and sophomore year of college with like the food service and the food staff were really not on it. I did not eat in the meal hall, so I only heard this from like secondhand, and it got on the news more than once of
Oh,
like the
geez.
chicken was undercooked. Um, there was cross contamination and cross contamination with the vegan and vegetarian options with like their meat, and it was just
Mhm.
such a mess. And I had their food once or twice when I went to events that were separate from the everyday class schedules, and the food was great because it was a scheduled event. But yeah, I had a vegetarian and a vegan friend who like could hardly eat there, which was awful. And they got their shit together because they were very close to being sued. I wish they had sued. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was a whole mess. Oh
it
shit.
sounds like it. I feel like just dining halls in general aren't really the most set up for dietary restrictions, at least from the experiences I've had. Um, I don't
Mhm.
know. Hopefully they're getting better, but
Yeah. I'm glad they like got their act together by the end so that my poor friends could eat. Like I like brought food here and there just because I didn't know if they'd gotten to eat anything. Um
yeah,
and
that's
just
pretty
like
sad.
yeah. or like they had to be like, oh, they could have like fruits and vegetables and stuff that wasn't cut or prepared by staff or whatever. And like the staffing was Aramark, which is a very big company that staffs cafeterias everywhere. So it was particularly wild that it was as poor as it was. But,
Yeah, it's like that is your entire company and job to do this. Why are you not doing it?
Exactly. But you know, it's one of those things I'm glad got fixed. But that was when good is one of those places that was very hard to decide what to eat because they had a little bit of everything. But I don't quite remember how we got on this topic, and I tried to segue it back, and I couldn't remember where we started. I tried to loop back, and I lost the road entirely.
It's okay. There's a big chicken finger sign pointing us back in the correct direction.
That's what it is.
I think that's how we got here.
I hit my mic. Oh, shoot. I hope that doesn't sound bad. Yes, I'm down for, like, anything, usually. And he's usually down for anything. He's more down for anything. At least he says he is. Again, I still... Part of me doesn't believe him. Like, I imagine he has to be in the mood for something sometimes, but the bigger part of me genuinely believes he's being honest. He just, you know, is happy to be present. You know, happy to eat something.
Right. Now, do you guys usually wait until you're already hungry to decide, like, if you're eating out more specifically?
Yes. Like at least 60% of the time, because if I'm not hungry, I'm useless. I'm not in the mood for food if I'm not hungry, and then once I'm hungry, then I can like pick something that I want. Usually we try to like get the ball rolling because we hang out the same day every week. So usually like the day before when I talk to him, like I'll start like, hey, what do you want to do for food tomorrow? Because we don't really have a lot of time during the weeks because I get home at 5 and he has to go home by 9. So with the time that it takes to either procure or cook a meal, that's most of our evening.
Right.
Which is fine. You know, I like cooking. It's a fun thing to do together, or to go to a restaurant. It's like our favorite things to do. But usually it's like that morning or like on my way home. I'm like, I'm starving. What do you want? And he's like, well, you're the one who's hungry. And like, you know what? Fair, but I still don't want to pick.
Yeah. At some point you reach a threshold where you're not hungry, so you're not thinking about food. And then there's a very fine line where you are hungry and you know what you want. And then you pass that line and suddenly you're ravenous, but nothing sounds good.
Yes. There is a peak there.
It's a very tiny window.
Yeah. And I'm very structured with like when I eat now, because I do like the intermittent fasting where I eat within an 8-hour window, and then I don't eat for the other 16 hours of the day, which is like part of a diet thing that I wanted to try. And so I know exactly when I'll be hungry. So I'm glad that I can kind of nail it down, like how I eat throughout the day. But I also feel bad when like that restricts like when Noah can eat. Like we have to eat pretty much immediately when I get home. Like by 6, I have to have eaten dinner, which is crazy if you're doing it with someone else. But if you're doing it by yourself, it's super easy.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge to create a structure with another person because you don't have that much control over their life and schedules. So yeah, can certainly see how that is hard. But
yeah,
do you have some strategies that have worked?
Yeah, so the easiest one, like for step 1, because like usually step 1 is like, do we go out or do we make food? And with a 2-person arrangement, usually it's, okay, Noah, you pick eat in or go out, and then I'll pick the dish or where. So at least like we both made a decision. We both feel like we've contributed, but also like didn't like shoehorn the other person into a corner. And we both contributed to the decision. Usually the second decision matters more than the first decision, but, you know, there's like some compromise there where neither of us feels like the other person got left out.
Sure, yeah, I like that. So that way it's not all on one person either to make the entire plan.
Absolutely. And neither, like, we're both, as this conversation has already gone, like, neither one of us is like, I want this and this is the way it's going to happen. I do that very rarely. There are some times where I'm like, you can veto it, but man, I want some sushi today. And he's usually like, okay, we'll get sushi. But it leaves, like, it forces us both to cooperate, or not cooperate, to contribute, because we're going to cooperate either way. It's very rare that we argue over what we're going to eat, but it forces contribution, which is what we need. The other one is, I think I got this from a meme. I think something from
meme.
Yeah, from like Tumblr. So like old.
Wow. Anything could be educational.
Yeah, and I never had Tumblr. This is one of those things that made it from Tumblr to Instagram. Where you do the 531, or 521. Or if we've decided, we usually do this with restaurants. We don't often do it with what we're cooking because there's less options. When we cook, we're pretty, like, we have a short list of things we like to make. But restaurants, we'll go anywhere and everywhere. I'll give him 5 options. He narrows it down to 2. I pick from the 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard of that before.
So it's another thing that, like, forces contribution, and we both have a say. And again, still, like, one side has more deciding power, but sometimes that's okay, and then we'll, like, trade roles next time. But yeah, it's worked a few times, especially when, like if I know I want chicken fingers, you know, if that's just what I'm in the mood, I want some fries and chicken fingers, and, like, on the list is Buffalo Wild Wings and lost my train of thought again. What's the restaurant? Longhorns and 99s, and then there's, like, 2 other ones that just, like, okay, this one's an Asian place, and then this one's, you know, barbecue. Then it leaves room for him. Like, I can clearly tell when he doesn't want a chicken finger meal, and I can gain information from his choices and then pick, like, from that too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes it is easier to work backwards. Like, if you know, okay, I really want this particular meal, or really don't want this particular meal, then you can take a step back and say, okay, what places serve or do not serve this thing?
Yeah, it hasn't always worked, because actually, you know what? It has always worked, but sometimes it works in the sense of, as soon as you start picking, you hear the other person's choices, you realize what you wanted. It's like flipping a coin, which I'm sure a lot of people do in the sense of, like, deciding on restaurants and stuff. We've definitely done the flip a coin. I don't mention it as a strategy because, like, everyone does that. It's not really a strategy. But as soon as you flick the coin into the air, you know which side you want it to land on.
Yeah, that's so huge, too. Sometimes you just need to hear the brainstorming to get your brain kind of in that mode of, like, oh, wait, actually, I think I do know what I want.
There have been times...
I just had to warm up for a second.
Yeah. You have to have an icebreaker with your own brain. There have definitely been times where, like, I haven't decided because I couldn't decide, and I wanted to accommodate, you know, what he would probably want, because I usually end up picking or having the more influential decision of those, like, two things that we do. And I'm being real stubborn about it, I'll admit. And then as soon as, like, he starts to pick something or we start to come to an agreement, then I realize what I want, and it's not the thing we're ending on. And I'm like, damn it. And I can't say anything because I'll look like a real jerk. Because I've already made this so incredibly difficult. And, like, reasonably, everyone would be happier if I just, like, said something. But almost never are we going somewhere that I don't like. Like, I'm always going to be fine, find something I like, enjoy myself no matter what.
Right. Like, I don't think I ever have so strong of a food opinion that if we went somewhere against it that I would, like, be upset or not eat, you know? Like, I can pretty much find things anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the getting to the anywhere. That's a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. Some of my, like, the only restaurants I've, like, actively, like, be like, I don't really enjoy this, are the ones that are, like, either super fancy or super expensive or whatever, and half of the menu doesn't make sense to me, and, like, it's set up in a way that I'm not used to. And it's usually that's what makes a restaurant, like, less appealing for me. And, like, there are exceptions. There's definitely like a real nice Italian place where the menu is completely in Italian and I've still had a great time. Am I gonna order the shrimp scampi? Yes, because I'm embarrassed to pronounce something wrong. But that's my own issue.
Okay.
But
Stick to what you know sometimes.
yeah. I'm trying to think of what
Yeah.
else. But yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable on, like, a place that I'm familiar with. But I thrive from repetition and, you know, comfortability. Comfort, Katelynn.
I was just about to say, like, it sounds like a word I've heard of before, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it is a word or if it's just a common wrong one.
That are comfortableness. Like, I get irritated a lot in movies when they, like, because it's a movie. The person who wrote it probably knows a little bit of grammar and vocabulary. You've just over suffixed this word when there's a simple word available to you.
Over suffixed. That's so good.
Like, I'm trying to think of. I can't think of an example right now, but I guess that one that I just said was a perfect example of one. You're like, you add the ability or the fullness over something that its root word is already a noun. So I don't know. It happens a lot. And I'm just like, why did they do this? And then Noah will look it up because he's curious. He's not usually trying to, like, spite me or the show or whatever. He's like, no, it's like a valid option. I'm like, sure, but why would you use it?
Like, it is a choice, but why did you make that choice?
Yeah. I'm like, there's so many words that are valid that people don't use. Why did you choose this one to use? I don't know. I used to be a crazy, like, grammar police in, like, the beginning of high school, and I blame no one other than Sister Priscilla for it. Well, and myself. I'll take my own blame, but
yeah,
I was very much.
I'm with you.
I don't think I was annoying about it. No one ever called me, like, you know, like the term, like, the grammar Nazi or, like, grammar police. No one ever called me that, but, like, some of them started to call themselves out, and they're like, yeah, I know Katelynn, and then they'll correct it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm becoming annoying, I can tell.
It's, like, it can be annoying to get called out in the moment, but at the same time, you're like, you're just gonna let me walk around with that grammar mistake? Yeah. And you knew better?
Yeah. There are some things I learned to let go of because, like, I'm the only person who knew it. Like, Shannon and I, for example. When I stopped correcting that one because there's so many intricate rules to how to use that. And I know it's, to those listening who do not know, that sounds stupid, right? Of course it does. But, like, they'll be like, me and Shannon went to the store. And I'm like, that's not right. And they're like, sorry, Shannon and me went to the store. I'm like, no, it's Shannon and I went to the store. You're still wrong. Because the trick is, if you take out the other person, would you use me or I? That's what makes it into the end. And then you're always second, and then the other person is always first. But, like, that's ridiculous to explain to someone in the middle of a conversation.
I know. Because then you end up on this whole tangent, and then you're lecturing them, and they're like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, they didn't quite deserve it. But we did all deserve to be taught correctly the first time.
Yeah. It's one of those things, too, where I don't know if, like, what's common knowledge versus just my own general interest, because I write pretty often. I enjoy doing it.
Hmm.
I worked as a writing tutor for a while, so I think I'm just like so hyper aware of some rules
Hmm.
that it's like, oh, that is really not that important in just the everyday usage of, writing an email or a paper or something.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I try not to get too judgmental about it ever because everyone has different knowledge of it. So I'm just sort of like, hey, do this thing because it's cool and fun and grammatically right.
Exactly. I I'm the only one I know who uses whom ever
Mhm.
in regular conversation without including the phrase "it may concern." Um,
Mhm.
I use whom here and there, but I also know I don't use it every time I should use it. So I've never once corrected someone on whom. But they have be like, "That's not right," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is," and then I'll explain the rule. But I mean, we were taught so many little tricks to like getting the who right and getting like the I or me correct that they've become so like ingrained in me.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of things that get ingrained too,
mhm.
um, are you familiar with the word via?
Yes.
Did you, once you learned what that word meant, start using it everywhere you could?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
still use it all the time.
I still do. Yeah, especially like if you need to receive or give something in a certain method, like, oh, I have to do this via email or let's chat via
Yeah.
phone call, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, feel so fancy.
I do that all the time. There's a lot of words I use a lot of phrases that I say a lot. There was one that my coworker called me out on recently. And I can't remember what it was, but and all that stuff, I think is what it was. Like you just like this, oh, and all that jazz. That's the phrase. I say and all that jazz
Mm.
a lot. And she's like, "You say that a lot." I'm like, "Is it weird?" She goes, "It's weird for someone your age to say jazz all the time." I got it from the
Oh,
B movie.
from the B movie.
That's not the quote, but the most prominent way I've ever learned, like, used jazz in normal speak is quoting the B movie of the specific quote,
Mhm.
"You like jazz?"
You like jazz?
Which
That's so
I
funny.
just rewatched that movie too, and I realized he doesn't even ask her that question. He's like practicing to himself, and no one answers the question. Does he
It's a
like
better.
jazz? Barry, do you like jazz?
Uh, I love things like that though, that you just pick up.
Mm.
I remember there's a girl in high school who asked me once, "Hey, how are like, oh, what's hip happening?" And ever since then, I use hip happening, and people associate it with me now, and I'm like, it's just one of those things that I thought was so fun and cool that I'm like, yep, this is a part of me now.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that how this tangent has developed as well. It's from like food to grammar so quick. But
Mm. I think that that's really a testament to our own nerdiness that we can make those connections.
yeah, truly. And you're like the one person I can think of. Besides, I mean, Noah's probably put up with me long enough, but at least like you and I would be most likely to correct each other's grammar and the other be okay with it, yet also be the least likely to make the grammar error in the first place.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I am far from perfect, but I pay attention to the way I form sentences. However, I cannot stop myself from saying and yeah a lot.
Yes. I'm trying to become more aware of those things. It's one of the things we discuss in public speaking as well,
Hmm.
trying to avoid the likes and ums that are, a part of everyone's vocabulary probably, but especially like our generation. Um
Yeah.
and the other day my dad said that he caught himself saying kind of a lot.
Oh.
So instead of saying, like, what's a good example of this? Not like to actually say he's in the middle of something, but just throwing it in the sentence as like an extra thing.
Yeah.
So like, oh, I was kind of hungry the other day when we were picking what to eat, and then he'll stop himself and go, "No, I was hungry." Like I don't need to add that extra phrase in there.
Yeah, I definitely do that, and we're like editing these podcasts too. Like I'm so aware because I use them to fill silences because I know there's a delay with Discord and there's nothing that can be done about that. But I know also that when I say them, it gives you reason to pause longer because you don't know if I'm going to say anything. And then the pause becomes even longer from me trying to fill the silence with an or a but yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I've edited out a lot of pauses. I've kind of stopped doing it just because like editing sucks, but also like I don't know, I like having the flow of conversation go the way it went when I like post these.
Mm-hmm.
But we've edited less and less as we've gone because like I get less interruptions from like my mom walking in or Colin or whatever because I know this happens every Tuesday or every other.
Right. And with anything too, I think as we're getting more used to talking to each other in this kind of setting, maybe we're getting better at it, maybe we're not. The listeners are probably like, you guys are still same average quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you start to notice it more once you become aware of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm so very, very much aware of how I talk. And I'm not a super fast talker the way that I used to be. I used to be very fast. But I find that I forget to breathe sometimes, especially like on this podcast where I'm like, I sound out of breath and I'm sitting on my butt talking.
Forget to breathe.
Like I'll be explaining something and my brain is working faster than my mouth and I'm trying to like say it in a way that makes sense and I'm very hyper aware of like everything on my screen right now with making sure Discord's open and that it's recording and that I'm like I didn't breathe. I gotta breathe. Like
just gotta remember to breathe.
Yeah, like I'm a singer. I should know when to breathe.
Yeah. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
No, also, I consider you to be an extroverted person. I don't know if you agree with that for yourself.
I am.
Okay, amazing. I was curious if that, like, played a role in... Like, do you think about what you're gonna say before you say it? That sounds terrible.
No.
You're a very thoughtful person. But I'm just curious, like,
well, thank
how
you.
your brain works.
It's a 50-50. Like, I get a thought in my head that, like, usually relates to something that you said or someone else said. But then you've continued to talk, which is reasonable to expect of you. And then it's my turn to talk. And then I try to, like, wrap it back to the point I had in my head. And by that time, either I've forgotten what I was talking about entirely, which happens a lot on this podcast, or I end up rambling too long and never got to the point. So I very much think quickly, but I then overthink the execution of my thought, and then I ramble.
Okay, so it's almost like you have a thought, but to get there, you're just like thinking out loud.
Exactly, and a lot of those ums come in as well, where I'll go like, speaking of what you said, trying to give myself time to like pull my point from the void into my mouth and I can't get it in time. But yeah, I'm usually quick to think of something to say. Like I'm good at holding and keeping a conversation going because I'm very quick to like, ask questions or like try to pinpoint something that someone's excited about to get them talking. But I am very much a talker. However, I am terrible at starting conversations. useless at
Oh,
starting
really?
conversations. Oh yeah. Especially when it's someone I don't know or I'm like new to this person. Like, hi, my name's Katelynn. How are you? How about that weather we're having? And I'm just useless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrible in public with that too. Like if an employee is doing the thing that they're supposed to do regarding me and they start like small talk, I'm good. But the silence or like if they ask me a question I'm not expecting, I short circuit.
Yeah. It's such a challenge. I think I've gotten better at it, hopefully, over the years.
Mhm.
And certainly studying communications, I think, has been a leg up. But um, yeah, no, it's hard to
Yeah.
talk to people, you know?
Yeah. I was always a good presenter. Like I was good at getting my thoughts out in a way that made sense verbally and like written, but I have to very, very carefully think through what I say before I say it, and then a lot during, or I will ramble, and I ramble a lot on here, and I think I've become better at it because I listen to myself on a recording, and I'm very aware. See, I just remembered to breathe. Um, and
Yay!
I'm very like hyper aware in a good way. I'm not critical of myself when it comes to the recording because I like there's no stakes here. I don't feel bad if I sound silly or whatever. I do feel bad when I can tell I've been talking for a long time and you haven't talked, but I know you prefer to listen. So I have to like kind of give and take there.
Yeah. No, I that's a valid concern for sure, and I my default is to just like sit back and listen and nod along. Um, so yeah, I hope I never made you feel weird about that. But
No, it definitely was never on your end. I was just like, oh, or even better with a guest too, where I'm responding to them, and then I can hear myself asking you questions to roll you back in because you haven't said anything. It's like, hey, Shannon,
nice.
what's your Easter tradition? Because I've been talking to Molly for 15 minutes straight.
Perfect. Like a good team leader.
I try. I'm not perfect at it, and like that was always a critique from teachers. It's like Caitlin's too like dominant, you know. She doesn't let other people take the lead. Like, you know what? Valid point, but also
I'm doing a great job of it, so
yeah, it's like not trying not to say it in a vain way, but just like, but I had a good point to make, so I made it, or I had a good idea, so I said it.
mm-hmm.
And it's a very valid critique, and it was valid definitely through school, and I definitely like I'm very much aware of it now in a way that I wasn't when I was a kid. But like as a kid I thought that was so unfair.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because you're like, my assignment was to do this thing. I'm doing so good. These other people got to keep up with me, you know?
Yeah, it was, and like I never like actively fought or disagree with the teacher over it. It was usually a written comment anyway. Um, but
What? Okay, I've lost track of where we went off track.
oh yeah, so did I. We were talking about grammar, and then grammar became SJA. Um,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
to whip this grammar train right back onto the food track, I guess something I was just thinking about that I was mentioning is, you know, who never has to decide what food they eat is Harvey.
Harvey your snake.
Harvey, my snake. And I've never mentioned it, I don't think, on the podcast besides maybe Faith's episode, but it's nice sometimes when I look at him and I'm like, I wish someone would just decide what I eat every day the way that it used to be when I was 10. I didn't have to think. And I didn't have to cook the things. Even though I enjoy cooking, I don't enjoy thinking. That sounds stupid. I don't like a lot of people point out like the mental load that comes with chores of like planning what to have to eat, going to the grocery store, checking to see what you have, like making the dish, cleaning up the dish, eating the dish in a timely manner. and then like planning or taking care of leftovers. And like, as much as I love cooking, I hate all the other things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so huge. Because, when you just look at the chore, you're like, oh, I have to cook and eat. But
Mhm.
then all of the surrounding decisions around it, it can be really exhausting if you're the person always making those decisions.
Mhm.
Especially if you have a family or other people you're taking care of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Like I only have to take care of myself, and it's effort. And it's effort I usually don't mind because it's very rewarding. I find cooking to be incredibly rewarding because I like to do it and because like I experiment with new things. And I know for a lot of people, it's not. It's a very stressful thing, especially if you're not just cooking for yourself. But sometimes even when like people find it very stressful. Um, but like breaking it apart and looking at all the tasks you have to do, even if you enjoy it, it's a huge endeavor, even if you do it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's why I didn't go into cooking as a career. That was one of the reasons I changed my mind.
Sure. Yeah, that's totally valid. Um, I think maybe a strategy that someone can use if they're overwhelmed by all of those choices is to try to minimize it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have go-to dishes that you know you're gonna like, or like staple foods that you use in a lot of your cooking, just having those on hand to sort of ease your mind
Mm-hmm.
can be helpful. Um, I mean, easier said than done, but making lists where you can is probably the best advice I have.
Yeah, you strike me as someone who's very visual, who likes like lists and tasks like written out versus like in your head.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my mom is very similar too, so I don't know if I picked it up from her or just kind of we're both naturally inclined that way, but um yeah, no, as soon as one of us mentions something we have to do, we're like we need to write this down or we'll forget immediately. Um so
Yeah. My mom
yeah.
has a very, probably to her, very organized strategy. To me, it looks like absolute chaos. Um, because I mean, she's been doing it for so long, like managing the lives of multiple people and a household.
Mhm.
She's been doing expertly for a very long time. But like, I'm like, hey, we just need more of this. And she goes, okay, write it on the list. And I go to the pad because we have like one pad downstairs. And I'm like, there's no
Mhm.
list. She goes, just write it on the pad. I'm like, okay, I write it at the top of the pad. There's nothing there. And then she goes to the grocery store with another piece of paper in her hand or whatever. And then she asks when she goes to the grocery store, 'cause she goes in the morning while the rest of us are at work, hey, do you need anything at the grocery store? And we'll text her or whatever. And she'll come home with everything needed. But the things, she had 4 different lists. She had my thing written on a random piece of paper. She had her list in her hand. She had my dad's and my request via text. And then she had whatever was in her head. And she remembers all of it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and I think she has a memorized path through the grocery store as well that makes it much easier to remember. Where she's like, okay, I always grab this thing here, so I'll do that. But I cannot. I don't have that kind of focus. I'll walk in like I need avocados. I need avocados, and be like, ooh, lemons are on sale. I'm gonna make lemonade, and then leave without avocados.
Yeah, that is such an underrated superpower is knowing the layout of your
Mm-hmm.
go-to grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't get over it. My mom will make a list and literally order it like in the order of the aisles practically.
Yes,
And I'm like, "Oh my God.
I need to start doing that.
I gotta start too because it saves so much time."
Yeah, and then you
But
forget
I just don't
something.
have that knowledge yet.
Yeah, and you forget something, you gotta double back. And you're like, all right, I grabbed, like, I'm making a guacamole. I grabbed the avocados. I grabbed the tomatoes. I grabbed the cilantro. Okay, let's go grab the chips. And let's go grab a soda. Shoot, I don't have an onion. I gotta go all the way back to produce. It's
Hmm.
such a mess. Even though onion was on my list, it was just too far down.
Yes.
And I always bring a written list, because when I check stuff off, I tear the paper at the edge where the item was written. Because I don't
Oh,
want to do it on my phone. Because like checking stuff off on my phone, if I accidentally tap something, I'm screwed. Um,
Mhm.
He's like, I have the iPhone notes, and the iPhone like tasks and notes are very clear, which I like more than Android. Android's a mess. Um, in at least that department. Otherwise, I prefer Android. But if you tap something, it checks it off. And if I put my phone down in the basket and I tap something and I check it off, I'm not gonna know.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I can see where the confusion is.
knowing you.
I prefer written lists too. I'll
Mhm.
actually bring a pen though, like physically.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
What do you hold it on your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just like anything becomes a writing surface when I'm walking around. Sometimes it's the cart, my hand, a shelf.
I absolutely love sticky notes when it comes to the grocery store because I can stick it right to the handlebars of the cart. Or the
Oh,
basket. Like I'll stick it to the bottom of the basket or like the front where I can see it.
yeah,
Um,
that's a good hack.
yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna leave it in an aisle somewhere.
Mm.
I'm gonna put it down while I like look at the backs of like the pasta box to decide which one I want. Because I'm like learning like the calorie counting and like balancing nutrition a lot right now. So I read a lot of boxes and things, more than I ever have. So I'm more likely now to put something down. And like I can't have my phone in my hand because A, I will get distracted, but B, I will leave it somewhere. So it stays in the bag. My wallet stays in the bag or the basket or whatever. So it has to be paper for right now, especially if I'm going alone.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good. That made me think too. While we're on the topic of choices and strategies,
Mhm.
when you're standing in the grocery store and you see the wall of pastas, are you the type of person that just always like grabs the same thing you always do? Or how do you make that decision of picking the thing off the wall?
Um, well, in the case of pasta, it depends on like the dish that I'm making, but assuming it's not super important, um, one cheapest box, bottom
Mhm.
line usually, but usually they're all very close. I always get a certain brand of most things, just because that's the way my mom always did it, and then my brain is like, that's the right one. Like I will always get Prince pasta. Like I'll never get any other brand, even though it's probably all the same.
Mm.
Um, like spaghetti has to be thin spaghetti Prince, just because that's the one Mama buys.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's my biggest, honestly, decision factor is like, what does Mom get? Because I like what Mom does, and if I do that, it'll be good. Um,
Yep.
Other than that,
Mom knows best.
it's usually the cheapest thing. Like I'm not super picky. There's only one food I will not buy, generic brand, and that's ketchup. It's the
What
only one.
brand are you?
Heinz all the way, baby.
Heinz.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
I
the only
didn't know
one.
there was a correct answer until just now.
Yeah, I'm strictly Heinz, and I definitely was aware that it's like more like a lot of the times like generic brand things are almost identical to the real thing. I did, however, get tested on ketchup before, and I was able to pick out the Heinz, so I know I'm not crazy.
Wait, can you walk me through though? When were you tested on ketchup?
Well, it wasn't like I was sat down with a blindfold or anything, but
That's
I,
what I was imagining.
you know, um, it was like one of those ketchup packets from like a pizza place someone had used. And I think it was Noah, and we were having pizza or something, and I was like, oh, hold on, I'm gonna go grab the ketchup. He goes, this ketchup right here, it's the same thing. And I like tried it, and I was like, no, this is red gold. And he's like, how the hell did you know? I'm like, because I know Heinz ketchup is better. I'm going to get Heinz.
That's amazing. You not only knew that it wasn't Heinz, but you knew what company it was.
Red gold is probably the only other one I can pick out. Like I got lucky. Any other, I can't even name another ketchup. Apparently, what's the one that makes the mustard? French's has a ketchup. Never tried it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Oh,
but
I don't know that one. Hunt's has a ketchup.
oh, Hunt's. That's right. I have tried Hunt's again from like pizza places, and I don't like it. I only like Heinz, and I can't. I think it's sweeter. My brain tells me it's sweeter. It could be something I've completely made up. I don't know.
Mm, who knows?
Yeah. Other than that, I'll generic brand literally anything. There are some things I would prefer not generic because I think they're like better. But Heinz ketchup is the only thing I will never buy another brand unless they're completely out and I need ketchup.
Mm, that makes sense. I don't know if I have. I mean, I have my go-to brands for things. I don't know if I have something that I'm super dead set on.
Mhm. What's your strategy to your question, like the looking at the pasta wall? Like where do you like start breaking it down?
Yeah, I think I certainly echo your point with things that are familiar or things that my mom has used are usually my go-tos.
Hmm.
But if it's like a new thing we're trying, or just generally I want to branch out, I guess. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I have like a good strategy. I should look at prices. I find I'm not as aware.
Hmm.
So, um, with those. I mean, like, I'm not out here picking like the most expensive thing,
Yeah.
but I've definitely checked something in the cart and then been like, oh, I should have checked that more thoroughly. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes this is so terrible, but like the vibes,
No, that's
there.
yeah. Sometimes just the vibes.
It's just the
Um,
vibes.
I will tell you,
Um,
as a designer, the vibes are what we strive for.
yeah, like a strong package design. I get it. I
Yeah.
know you're marketing for me. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
care. It worked.
There's a lot of foods that I have either gotten or really considered getting because the packaging was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't like minimalism design for the most part. However, if you have a box of like banza or a banza pasta is the perfect example. You have a box and it's matte and it's one solid color, I'm freaking sold. I don't know why. There's like minimal things written on the front and it's solid orange. And I don't even like orange. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing.
I know exactly what package you're talking about too, which I think it speaks to how well it works.
Right? And like,
Um,
no one eats chickpea pasta, but everyone knows that Bonzo's the chickpea pasta.
mm-hmm.
My
Exactly.
dad eats it, which is like, I first saw it in my house. Or like, there's a soda brand now that's like a better version of LaCroix. That's like each can, each flavor is a solid color, and the rainbow altogether looks amazing. Or what's the other?
Fun.
There's a like a vitamin brand that's in CVS and Target that's like geared toward women, and it's all like pastel, and like the fronts of each ones are like super minimalist. And I don't like minimalist design, but I love minimalist packaging design because packaging sometimes needs to chill out.
You need to calm down, packaging.
Yeah, like look at go to the like laundry detergent aisle and tell me they're not trying too hard. It's detergent.
Mm.
Relax, Tide.
Take it down a notch.
Yeah, and that's
That's
all
so funny.
personal preference. Like a lot of people like are drawn to different things. I also like vintage design. I do the alcohol aisle. That is where you go for peak packaging design. Alcohol brands spend so much time on their branding and you can tell and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. Um, I used to work with someone who also, like, on the side would do, I think it was a beer company
Ooh.
design. And it was just, yeah, he's like, this is my favorite job ever. Um, but yes. Okay, before I lose this thought,
Yeah.
too, going back to making decisions, for a better answer than vibes, um, I'll tend to look at ingredients too. So if it's not just like, something like pasta, but a pasta salad maybe, um, checking for things you actually like is
Mm.
key. And it sounds so straightforward, but there's so many times where like you pick up, say, like a chicken salad, and I personally like that really plain. So if I see there's like celery and cranberries and all this other stuff in it, this is not the one for me. Like I go for individual ingredients that I like too, because then it's more likely that I like the bigger picture.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed with choices in a grocery store, especially if you're someone who's new to it. And
Mhm.
I wrote a little bit about it in Simmer's book, and I really wish I had gone into it further, but I just didn't have the time or the space in that book. Um, like going in with a game plan, if you're someone who is overwhelmed, is like so necessary. And I'm far beyond that point now, thankfully. Because like I'm not nervous, like talking to people or like being in public like the way I was when I was younger. Like 13, 14, like I couldn't schedule my own doctor's appointment. I couldn't call a pizza. I couldn't, like most people couldn't at the time. That's not a super unique thing. Um, but I'm well beyond that now. But a lot of people aren't. So like like know what you like, and then you get in and out quicker. You've made better decisions. Never go to the grocery store hungry. That's stupid.
Mhm.
Don't do that. And if you are hungry, do not go down the cookie aisle.
Oh
Just don't
yeah,
do it. You don't need cookies
big
or
advice
crackers
there.
most of the time. You can go down the chip aisle because at least you get more bang for your buck in the chip aisle. Don't go down the cookie aisle. But
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, so huge, all the things you said. And just like knowing your own self too, like if you're someone that works better with having a list and saying, okay, I'm gonna do these things. And then you can also kind of give yourself like constrained creativity. I don't know if that's a good word for it.
yeah.
But if you're like, I know every time I go to the store I want a little snicky snack, like you work that in too. You add it to the list. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
I
nice.
always work in like adding something for fun that I saw on the way. Cuz like it
Hmm.
makes the trip a little more fun, and I'm excited to go home and eat whatever weird thing I grabbed, cuz like sometimes it's like one of those pickles in a bag, or um like a fruit, like a random fruit, or a bag of like chips that I really like. I don't know, just make it's a little reward for getting a chore done. Um
Exactly.
and like I think people, our generation at least, is getting much better with like the, rewarding yourself for small things, and like the self-care aspect of doing regular everyday chores. But if you're not someone who does that, try it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of I think the term is gamification.
Yes,
Or
I'm
like
not very good at
gamifying.
it because I need someone to tell me how to play a game usually, but that's exciting.
Yeah. So the concept for people who don't know is basically like turning everyday tasks or just general things in life into more of a game for yourself. So I recently did it because I saw a video of someone do it and I was like, this just looks so goofy and silly. I'm gonna try it. Where they had like 20 things to do and they drew a little monster that had a health bar of 20. So every time they did a task, like there was literally no other reward than like erasing a little bit of a line and saying you're defeating this chore monster. Um, so it's just like little things to make your day a little more silly. Life doesn't have to be so serious.
That is super cool. And I've seen like there are a lot of apps that coming out, and I'm getting a lot of ads for like diet stuff right now because I've like researched things, and I'm not on any like fad diet just because it's a lot of effort. I'm just, working with my constraints. But there's one app that gamifies eating well, and I'm so curious about it, but I don't want to pay for it.
Hmm.
I already pay for an app for food tracking. Like, I don't want to pay for another one. However, I would be so good at eating vegetables if I got points for it. I'm a gremlin. I'm a little point gremlin. I feed off of positive reinforcement, and I feel like my phone giving me points for eating healthy would be the perfect positive reinforcement.
Whatever you gotta do.
Yeah.
Just
And it feels silly, yeah, but at the end of the day, you've gotten your tasks done. You've eaten well, or you've cooked something for yourself, and that itself is an amazing like feat, because like we were saying earlier, cooking is a lot of effort. Even if you
yeah,
enjoy it, it's a huge thing. And just having done it is still like that's a worthy endeavor. Feeding yourself is like one of the top 3 things you need to do in a day. Like besides like breathing and water. Water's probably a little bit more important, but you should definitely also eat.
Definitely, yeah. And just a friendly reminder too, like these things that you do every day and can get bogged down by decisions, it's so easy to feel exhausted from doing those things. Or like, Katelynn and I were joking earlier of being people pleasers, like if you're so worried about other people too, it's just remember that it's a thing that like it's a victory to do it.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna be trying to figure out how to word this. Like, you deserve to have food. So, like, do it in a way that makes you happy and fulfills you. Is really the long and short of it.
Mm-hmm. I always support, trying something new, learning a new skill, especially with cooking, just because it's such a necessary skill. Try a new food, try a new, like type of thing, But making yourself a box of Kraft mac and cheese still checks off the make dinner on your list as much as like making a soup from scratch. So if that's all you can manage, that at least you've done it. It beats, not eating because it has stressed you out so much that you're no longer hungry. Because that's not good for you either. Kraft mac and cheese, like here and there, is healthier than not eating.
Yeah, go where the energy is. That's a big one.
Or even
like if you're not feeling making a 5-course meal, it's fine. Go find it somewhere else. Make a different decision.
Yeah. And you can always meet yourself in the middle too, where you want to make a better decision than like a Kraft mac and cheese. Make yourself a banana and peanut butter sandwich. Now you've got a fruit, you've got a protein. You got far less carbs than a bowl of pasta. But like that's still itself a nutritious like snack or a meal if like you're not super hungry. It's not a huge meal, but it's food.
That's so good. I love peanut butter and banana. It's one of those things I always forget about until I have both of them at the same time. Like in my house.
Yeah.
Like,
I gotta get back into making smoothies. And I would always put peanut butter and banana in there. But recently I've tried to do it like just berries and stuff. And like I find that I don't like them. I feel like they taste this might be my hot take of the podcast. I don't know.
Oh.
Ooh. Smoothies leave an aftertaste in my mouth that reminds me of puke. I don't get it. I like fruit flavored things otherwise. Like I like bananas and strawberries and blueberries and raspberries most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the fruits I like. I don't like a lot of fruits, but those are the ones I like. But I drink it and I'm just like, ugh. I just like, it's in my head and in my throat that it like feels like after I've just thrown up and I don't get it. Now I'm like, now I can't eat this.
Is it with like fresh ingredients or like frozen fruit?
Both. Frozen fruit has been more recent, but I've done it with fresh fruit and it's also done it.
Okay.
I don't know if maybe one day I had a smoothie and I got sick and that's been like stuck in my brain now.
That will happen sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't eat mac and cheese for a year after one day I had a big bowl of it and I got the stomach bug the next day and I couldn't eat mac and cheese and now I can again. This was like 8 years ago and I made homemade mac and cheese, single serve homemade mac and cheese for dinner tonight and I was so excited. So actually, that I meant to bring that up at the beginning of the podcast. This is a little bit of a tangent, but here's like a self-rewarding dinner. I told you that I don't like homemade mac and cheese. I like Velveeta. I met myself in the middle, and you can buy Velveeta cheese blocks, and I used a little bit of that and a little bit of cheddar, and I made mac and cheese from scratch, and it was better than Velveeta from a box.
Nice.
I did it.
Let's go. That's character growth right there.
Right? You could tell your mom that I like homemade mac and cheese better. Because I know she was upset.
She'll be so proud.
And I think about it too, because like I've never made homemade mac and cheese. Like just for myself. I've made it from a recipe once before, but I had done it with Noah with the intention of cooking for a lot of people. And this one was just me, and I could just like make it and spice it as I wanted, and I put it on egg noodles instead of like regular pasta. And it was so good. I ate it like I've never eaten a bowl of pasta so slowly because I was savoring it so much.
I love that for you.
So, yeah, and like, that's the other thing too. Like, I've mentioned it a lot in this podcast with like, I hate the word dieting, but like I try to say like I'm eating better. And like, I ate great all day, so I deserved a little bit of mac and cheese at the end of the day. Like I had, what did I have for breakfast? I had corn. I had corn for breakfast. Some,
You had corn for breakfast?
Yeah, some defrosted corn with a little salt on it.
I love a good not breakfast food for breakfast.
Yeah, especially when I can't eat breakfast until 10:30, so I kind of just go with whatever. I had honestly, I had eggs for lunch, which is funny. So I had 2 hard-boiled eggs for lunch, and I've had salads and guac and and soups the past couple weeks, and it's been so good. And like I like cooking cooking vegetables differently, and I don't, I'm sick of eating like carrot sticks cold. So trying to find new ways to cook new veggies, and I've been getting there. But I was like, Dad, get mac and cheese when I get home. I'm so excited. It was worth it. It lived up to it.
Good. Oh, glad to hear.
Yeah. There was enough room in my day for some cheese.
So good. But, well, I think, do you have any takeaways as we're reaching the end of the episode here?
We're all over the place, but I think my biggest is like gamify your life a little bit, especially with like food. If food stresses you out a little bit, like here's some strategies we came up with that. Oh my god, my phone is ringing. Hi, Noah. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
I'll
good.
call you right back. Okay. Scared the crap out of me. Like, here's some strategies that work for us. Definitely go find some that work for you. Like, it's worth experimenting. That's my takeaway. If anyone has any fun strategies to share with us, feel free to do that on all the things, all the links in the bio as usual. Or not bio, but the description or whatever the heck the text is below the voices. But yeah, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Peace out.